Well, I hope you guys are ready for some technical speed death metal, or I guess now it's just technical speed metal. Yeah, let's dive into it. Rings of Saturn, self-titled album. So Rings of Saturn is a technical speed metal band. They hail from the Bay Area in California, USA. They got their start way back in the early 2010s, like 2009, 2010. What really kind of broke them into the scene is the raw energy that they have, the fast-paced speed metal guitars with crazy drum licks along the ways, and always kind of focusing in their lyrics and their albums in some kind of like a alien presence of some kind. They've put out a number of really standout records. Embryonic Anomaly, back in 2010, followed it up with Digger, which was fine, definitely getting into that like really raw kind of metal. Lugai Kai N, I think is how the 2014 was pronounced. And then the album that got me introduced to them, which was Yuta Yula. Again, love the presentation. I almost loved how, because of the soundscapes on the guitars, it almost felt MIDI in approach. Like it almost felt like I was playing some, I don't know, like NES or Sega Genesis game on like the 3 times speed. In 2019, they put out Get 'Em, which was fine. Probably not my favorite of theirs, but definitely good. But then in 2020, they kind of did a big shift, and they actually went through and both re-recorded, remixed, remastered all of their albums and made them all instrumental in approach. And this album of theirs, I believe, is their first without any lyrics. This is a purely instrumental album, and it looks like that's kind of the way forward. I mean, there's a little bit of story behind the scenes about all that, and I'm not really going to get into it because I don't really think it factors into the music. Sometimes the drama going on behind the scenes factors into the music. This one doesn't really do that. It just kind of feels like the next progression for the band, with the numerous lineup changeovers of individuals. Essentially, the main people on the album right here are Lucas Mann, Joel Osman, and Peter Paul Locke. And they're kind of filling this out as a trio with, some people coming in whenever they're doing some tours in that sense. So the thing that really kind of stood out for me on this record in comparison to all the others is both the changing of the music in its like scope and in its presentation, as well as, again, you don't have any lyrics on it. So like most of the emphasis on here is creating those really interesting, fast-paced, like note sequences and presentation in music while still maintaining a lot of that really interesting harmonizations and soundscapes behind that. One of the most interesting aspects that the band decided to try their hand in this time around is a lot of the beats on here, because they are not necessarily reliant on a single drummer in this case. Because of that, they don't just lean on that entirely. A lot of the beats are actually provided by like a beat sample, and a lot of that kind of feels like trap music in that sense. So the first track of Shrine, as well as the fourth track of Genesis, have a number of moments that basically you could say is like speed metal trap music in that sense. And I really like this blending of genres and this blending of styles, and like taking this thing from something that has definitely not been touched by the speed metal side of things and infusing it in here, and it generally works. Like, it works very well in providing a beat, a rhythm section to then play this really intense, really strong speed metal over top of. And I also love that they're trying to stretch their legs a little bit into kind of diversifying the sections of music on here. Like the second track of Chronos, as well as the fifth track of Mind Palace, and a little bit of Genesis. They waver quite a bit in terms of the sound selections that they're doing. There's a lot more emphasis on keyboards on this album. There's a lot more of this like haunting presentation. Like, it's almost reminded me of some of the more somber moments from the Faceless album of All Your Ghosts. It has this menacing, haunting feeling on it, which is a little novel for a band that up to this point has basically just been looking up at the stars and like, I wonder what the crazy high-level intellect the aliens out there would have, rather than kind of looking up into the cosmos and having some kind of like a Cthulhu mythos of like the great old ones looking back, so it was very interesting to see this little bit of a shift going on with this band, and I think that it works very, very well, especially within Kronos, Kronos being like the god of time and the passage of time, and I'm liking how it's moving from one section being very somber, haunting, with a lot of that, again, trap beats kind of over top of it, with it shifting right into this speed metal and this like crazy 1,000 notes per second, and like the two are able to blend and go from one to the other very, very seamlessly. And that MIDI sound that I felt with the last album is definitely found on here with Ascending as well, the third track. Like I'm almost getting like tastes and flavors from like Disaster Piece. I know that most of these are just guitar sounds, guitar licks, rather than emphasis on the keyboards on that sense, but like I wouldn't be surprised if the boys even contracted some really hard-hitting keyboardists to come in and really flush out some of these sounds, especially with Ascending, where it's not just like balls to the wall insanity energy going on. They're able to kind of strip it back a little bit and still have that really fast-paced, fast presentation, but not being reliant on like the double kick drums leading the song through. Because honestly, a lot of the rhythm sections on here is being provided by, again, either a MIDI or like a keyboard, rather than being reliant on drums exclusively. Like they're mainly providing the main rhythm section on there. Now there are definitely piano works and keyboard works found on the fourth track of Genesis, and I really like that they're diversifying the sounds in this case. Again, they're not just reliant on their old tried and true aspects of either the double kick drums, the fast-paced guitars. They're bringing in new things to really rejuvenize the sound in that case. And here we have quite a number of passages that really feel like rooted in a classical piano in that sense, and it breathes a lot of new life in that. And the next two songs of Mind Palace and Sector 80, they bring back a lot of that really big speed metal aspects. And I like how Sector 8 really is just a 15-second punch of adrenaline to get you into Shinigami, I think it is, the last track on here. It goes through so many different flavors and so many different aspects that really does tie together the whole album. I love how gripping it is. I love how fast-paced it is. And at no point does it ever feel like some of those more somber moments are like a breath of release. If anything, it's tightening the coils even more for the final piece of this album. So yeah, the self-titled album of Rings of Saturn really kind of blew me away in that sense. It's tight. It's only about a half hour long, but they don't waste a single second on this. And I really wish more bands and more artists would do things like this. And instead of bloating their albums with everything they can think of, they take the music that they have and tighten it up into the best possible package that they can. And because of that, at no point do I ever feel bored. At no point do I ever feel like it's dragging on. I feel like every single second is used perfectly in that sense. And this really is kind of Rings of Saturn taking a new stance on what their music is going to mean moving forward. They're showing that they're not afraid to experiment. They're not afraid to try different things that other, speed metal bands might grit their teeth a little bit and be like, that doesn't really fit in our MO. There's nothing off the table for these guys, and I really think that blossoms into the music that's found on this album. Yeah, I had a great time with this. I think the band is really coming into their own, and I think that they work much better as an instrumental album in this case, because they're not always trying to fit in lyrics or motifs to tie the album together. They're letting the music do that for them. So if you're a fan of speed metal, if you're a fan of this like really extreme tech metal, I think you're going to have a really good time with this, because they're one of the few like big metal acts out there that aren't relying on the gent drops to kind of market their albums. I had a great time with this. I hope you do. And yeah, I can say that the self-titled album from Rings of Saturn is one that I absolutely would pick up in physical format. I mean, if you can find this one, you got to pick it up, especially if you're into this kind of music. And I think that this is a really good introduction to the Rings of Saturn style of music as well. You know, it's not quite as intense, it's not quite as bombastic as a lot of their past albums, but it still has that speed metal teeth that I really appreciate with these guys. So yeah, this one gets the notes of approval. I think you guys should check it out. So there you go. That's my thoughts for Rings of Saturn self-titled album. What did you guys think about this? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. I also realized this is the second like metal outfit, there we go, that has used their band name as their title after Zeal and Ardor, and I loved both of them. So yeah, more of those, please. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.